have Ryan Gibson over here from Spartan Investment Group, and I was really excited about this interview because Ryan's being a long-term friend of mine, and he's one of these people who has built a huge success in a very short period of time. So, you know, and every time I kind of talk to him is about the systems and the process, and that's kind of how they really kind of took off. So this was really intriguing for me. I was really excited to be able to interview him in his office over here and then just try to take a sneak peek into their operation. So Ryan, thank you so much to be on our program today. It's going to be very much open style when we have conversation about it. So I'm going to ask you some hard questions maybe, and then really take a sneak peek into what you guys are doing over here in Spartan that is so successful. Okay, so for some of our viewers, I want to kind of take us way back. You obviously are very successful. You used to have a W-2 job. Now you quit that, yeah? Okay, no
mostly
more.
part-time.
Okay, mostly part-time at your own leisure.
Extremely part-time, yeah. More of a hobby that I enjoy at this point. Yeah.
Great, awesome. And then so what were you doing for your W-2?
So I was an airline pilot for the past 15 or so years. Yeah. And so my passion is actually flying. So what I like to do is I really got intrigued with flying. It's what I wanted to do ever since I was a kid. And I also was very entrepreneurial. So on my path to progress for flying, I learned how to sell Cutco knives, actually.
Oh, wow.
That's how I paid for all my flight training. Kind of a funny story. But I learned how to be an entrepreneur through learning sales.
I see.
That paid for my flight training. It was kind of a means to an end. And then I got into the flying career, and I really liked the flying, but I didn't like the away from family, a lot of nights on the road, part of it, but I still was very passionate about it. So the way that I've restructured my airline profession allows me to get the enjoyment of flying, but also get more time off through taking personal leaves and things like that, so that I can pursue my entrepreneurial goals.
Yeah, so let's kind of we'll kind of go back and forth on the timeline a little bit, because to our viewer, it's very important for us to kind of understand where you come from, and what the moment is when you decided to kind of switch over the gear. Yeah. So you love flying, and you're still flying at your own leisure. Yeah. And so what was that moment when you decided, okay, I got to do something else, switch into more investment mode to kind of the current path?
Yeah, sure. I don't think there was one particular inflection point or,
Really? There is no?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. I always of course, reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, things like that inspires me to go, that helped me organize my life. It helped me go, okay, I'm doing consulting work for the FAA. I'm a pilot. I'm doing W-2. Yeah. I'm trying to start a business, and then I'm doing a little bit of investing. So I kind of understood what activity I was spending, and the books kind of helped me organize my thoughts. Okay. But forever, since I was 9 years old and I borrowed my dad's lawnmower and went around the block and tried to make my own way and make my own money, I've wanted to be an entrepreneur and be independent. Yeah. And so, if I could go back in time and just tweak my 9-year-old self, what I would say is stop mowing all these lawns. What you're doing is good and you're making cash. Yeah. But what I would do is say, tweak that and do the marketing for the lawns, do the sales, right? Create an ecosystem of customers. Yeah. But go find a bunch of great employees that will cut the lawns, and you focus on the leadership of the business, and then grow this into a big landscaping company, right? Yeah. That would have been my advice to myself. Yeah. And it took me a while in life to sort of figure out that's what I really wanted all along, not to exchange a bunch of time for money and do all this work and then just realize that as soon as I spent it, I had to go do all that work again. Right. So I think learning about real estate and kind of understanding the value that it provides really was kind of the, more of when I found out about real estate, I kind of was like, this is what I've been searching for my whole life. I've always wanted to be entrepreneurial, but I never really understood what I was exactly doing. And I think reading those books helped me kind of organize that. structure.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of more the elongated road to kind of discover yourself, but before you were kind of intuitively doing that,
yes,
helps you kind of compartmentalize your thoughts a little bit.
Exactly. So like that's why I think reading and studying and podcasting and doing all those things, I think that was really probably whoever taught me how to go into my smartphone and find the podcast app.
Yeah, who did that?
You know, I don't even remember actually. I mean, I just remember, just listening to all these podcasts.
Yeah.
And, my business partner, Scott, he was very influential in helping me structure and organize as well. Because he was the person who basically was like, hey, we need to be reading a book every month, and we need to be having a strategic plan, and we need to be making this into a business. Yeah. And I was always like, well, I just want to do deals. And, I want to buy property, right? And he was always trying to push that. So I think that was he was actually the person that was probably the most influential in getting me on the right path.
Yeah. How did you find him?
So it was basically a relationship that started in a neighborhood. So never knew Scott. We bought a house in DC. We tore it down to the studs. Yeah. And I learned that oh my God, this isn't too bad. You can buy a house, you can rip it all apart, and you can put it all back together. And it's a really nice house, and it appraises really nice. And then I realized I bought a house in a gentrifying neighborhood that was, changing, and I was one of the only newer residents on the block. Yeah. Everybody else had been there for a long time, so a lot of vacant, abandoned houses. Yeah. So when Scott and his wife was walking down the street, I pretended to check my mail. Yeah. And went out there, and he said, "Oh, you live here, and can I see your house?" And all right. So from there, he bought the house next door. We became good friends, and then we ended up flipping the house in between us.
I see. And then you lived there. You lived there at that time. Okay.
Yeah, we lived there, and then we flipped. So we flipped 4 houses on that street.
Wow.
So and those were all of our first projects together.
Yeah. So really, kind of going way back, and you recognize that he's kind of the opposite persona that you are.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm very systems driven and checklist driven, but when I sit down and I map out my day. Yeah. I don't, I think of how to go out and, kind of hunt versus farm. And I kind of think of like how many investors can I get, who can I call, what relationships can I harvest, and I guess that's farming, going and finding relationships. But he was more, hey, let's not worry about any of that stuff. Yeah. Let's worry about like a strategic plan, writing a business model, doing things at scale. Yeah. I would do things like, I could memorize all the investors that were on a particular project. Right. Like, well, what are you going to do? How are we going to make this a repeatable process when we have 200 investors, 300 investors, and you can't memorize all that, right? Yeah. So how do you? So there was always just that influence, and I'm similarly I'm the same way, but it was always like, hey, how can this be repeatable and scalable? Right. And that was his theme, kind of throughout the company. I think that really helps. So, I think having said that, it's really important to find. If you're going to work in a partnership, I think finding somebody that has disagreements with you and who understands something that you don't and can be complementary to your skill set. Yeah. We disagree all the time. Right. Yeah. It's healthy. It's very healthy. Yeah. And if you, you and me are on the same page, let's go find a bunch of deals and buy as much as we can and do as much as we can. Yeah. And, then that's what we're going to do, and it may not be the right thing. Yeah. So give us an example of when you guys get into arguments. What is it like? Well, geez, just listen to us for like 10 minutes until the argument. Yeah. So we're very both values driven. So we're always debating on if something is in line with our core values. Like values as in like profit, or value as in like are we doing the right thing for our people? Are we being transparent? Are we providing customer service? Are we doing something that benefits, our mission, which is to improve lives through real estate. Right. Because if we're not, then we have an integrity violation, and we shouldn't be doing it. Yeah. So a great example of that actually just happened this week, and so I'll give you the example: return of versus return on. Yeah. Right. And you were very involved in that discussion. Yeah. So we were talking about the return on capital versus the return of capital. Right. So if you give me $50,000 and I give you a $1,000 check. Yeah. On top of that 50, that's a return on capital. Yeah. If you give me $50,000 and I give you $1,000 back, and now I only have a balance of $49,000, that's a return of capital. Right. I basically collect your money and give it back to you, and then be like, hey, I made a profit on this. Yes. So you can see that in that thread. Yes. I was playing the the card of, I don't like this. I don't like return of capital. I think it's deceiving, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, I always believe that there's another side, and there's a reason why people do things.
Right.
And so I'm very open-minded to that. My opinion is subject to change. So it was interesting. So I actually took those conversations. I asked a couple of sophisticated investors in my network what they thought.
Yeah.
And then I brought up that to Scott and my team.
Yeah.
And Scott immediately had the same reaction that I had in the thread, and which was, you know, this is an integrity violation, it's deceiving, things like that. But I played we should look into doing this, you know, and see what value it provides.
Right.
So we had a back and forth discussion, and, you know, although it got, you know, pretty, not heated, but just back and forth, you know, this is wrong, no, it's right, this is wrong, no, it's right. It was very good to have that, like, internal debate to figure out if that made sense to apply in certain positions.
Yeah.
And that brings up Ben. So Ben is kind of like our third partner in the business, and he's the financial guy. So he's like, well, hey, I just modeled this, and this is what it would mean if we pulled that lever.
How do you find him?
So networking. Everything is networking.
Okay.
So getting out, you know, I always encourage, you know, and this is probably what the big difference between me and Scott is.
Yeah.
And Scott's a networker, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I tend to be a little bit more random. So, like,
you're totally random. I mean,
totally random.
We have a conversation and go totally random.
Right, totally random, yeah. So he's not random. He's driven, he's focused. This is, you know, we got so much time of the day, got so much to do.
I talk to you, there's a goal, why I talk to you. So could rub people the wrong way, could be.
And I'll give you a great example of it. So, like, there's meetups that through meetup.com, and I'll look at, okay, what's going on tonight in Seattle?
Right.
And I'll be like, what's that? Right? That looks interesting.
Yeah.
Or maybe it looks potentially to be a waste of time.
Yeah.
To Scott, complete waste of time.
Yeah.
To me, an opportunity.
Yeah.
Just to, like, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'll go to that meeting and I'll walk away with a $150,000 investor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, and it was just random and.
But he's more strategic and all that.
Yeah.
So how did you meet Ben?
So Ben, actually Scott met at a meetup.
Oh, okay.
So
Scott actually went to meetup.
He went to a meetup, and so like I said, I mean he gets out there. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I tend to be a lot more just sort of happenstance all the time. But he went to this John Fisher breakfast in Colorado,
right?
And he started meeting Ben. They became friends. They kind of were together. Ben was kind of trying to find his bearings in real estate. Wanted to do real estate. He had already owned multifamily. He already owned 20+ single family houses.
Okay.
He had already raised money to buy those houses.
Right.
And they just got along. And they started developing a relationship. And after a while, Scott's like, "Hey, I think we should bring this guy on as a partner."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, who is this guy?" You know, the next thing you know, he's in my living room.
Yeah.
I remember, I'll never forget. It was like July of 2017.
Yeah.
And we just talked, and I was like, "Hey, I like Ben, and he brings a lot to the table. I don't know how this is going to look, but let's figure this out." So Ben really took a chance with us, and he's got a background in finance from Rutgers. He's been involved in multiple startups.
Yeah.
And Scott and I are just real disagree, and then we're like laughing and shaking hands at the end.
Yeah.
Ben is definitely the potent for making it like you're right and you're right. So and you're both saying kind of the same thing.
It's like a bridge.
He's like a nice contextualizer.
Yeah.
So he was a really nice addition to the team. So I would say, you know, the takeaway in all this rambling is build your team one by one. And I really believe that if you just bring good people on, regardless of their experience, you know, their drive, their initiative, their cultural fit, that you'll grow an organization really fast. And then the people that you bring in will understand how special it is to be working with the people that they're working with. Yeah. And then they become protective of the culture.
That's actually, I totally agree. So I just recently got brought on to partnerships, and I see the hardworking other people who's already working there, and there's a good fit of my contribution to that group, and it really gets me really excited. So it's that X factor is like 2 + 2, like 1 + 1 is not 2, but like 3 possibly, right? Yeah.
And I think that's what's really, because then we brought on, we had Lindsay come on, and then Jackie, and then Carrie, and then Lauren, and then you know, and it's just now Lauren is doing interviews for us, and she kind of is evaluating. Hey, is this she gets it? She, you know, is
so
this
HR interview?
She sits on. She's our marketing person, but she understands kind of like the culture that we're all protecting. And that's why when we bring somebody on, we go through, everybody in the company interviews them.
Yeah.
So we do an initial screen for fit and make sure that they understand what the position is and isn't.
Yeah.
And then we do if they get brought in, then they go to the panel, which is the three directors.
Right.
They all collaborate.
Yeah.
They don't give us, if they recommend them for the executive interview, me and Scott interview that person, and then we can't make a decision to recommend. We only have veto power.
Yeah.
And it's mostly just cultural at that point.
Yeah.
So we have some layers. We do personality testing. We do the DISC profile.
Nice.
And the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
And so we make sure that they're, we kind of understand their personalities.
Yeah.
And we actually create baseball cards on people. So if you are working with somebody, you can look at their baseball card and you can see it's kind of like a breakdown of their bio. Like what things does this person like? What things that makes them tick? What things are good? What things are bad? Are they a protector?
Yeah.
Or are they an obliger? Or are they a type A? Or whatever they are. So you can kind of understand, like, when they're saying something back to you, you kind of understand their point of view.
Yeah, the communication between teams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can say, oh, like, I know that this person has a pile of stuff on their desk.
Yeah.
And they're going to say yes to whatever I pile on because they're an obliger.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Or I say, hey, I've got a problem with something that you're doing or with a person that you manage.
Yeah.
And I know that person is naturally going to be a protector.
Right.
So I know that's going to be kind of their initial.
I'm probably a obliger because, like, the paper on my paper is totally high.
Right. So
yeah.
And I know that obligers, what they do is they let it stack up.
Yes.
And then they implode.
Yeah.
Right. And so our goal in Spartan is to make sure that people don't implode. Like, that they get,
And that's like in my mail. They get stuck up and then they get cleaned away by my husband.
Right, exactly.
And they just never get sick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. Now I know about myself.
Yeah. So that's kind of the overall goal.
That's
is to make sure that we're, doing assessments and working with people and things like that.
So kind of take me back a little bit, like we kind of talk about the moment that you decided, well, not it's moments, like slowly that you decided to shift it over. How did you kind of slowly transition that over?
Don't quit your job. Do not, I know a lot of people just want to, and I know you're in the same, you've done this, I think, smart.
Yeah.
Real estate is hard. And it's really hard to make money,
right.
And it's really hard to consistently make money.
Right.
And if you think that you're going to go buy an apartment building and make all this cash flow, you're not.
Yeah.
Right?
You got to work at it before it start paying you. You got to pay it.
Yep.
And
So it takes time, and it's the same in storage and everything, right?
Yeah.
So I think what we did, what Scott and I did, is we held on to our full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And we did for, I think, 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
Scott exited. I went to very part-time, almost to no work at all.
Yeah.
So, give yourself you got to have a way to eat, and you got to have a way to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. And then you've just got to know that in the after hours, that's where you get all your work done.
Yeah. So do you have a goal then? Like there's a cash flow goal. Is that kind of how you work and to kind of work it backwards?
It's interesting.
How do you know?
It's interesting. I know a lot of people come up with their freedom number.
Yeah.
They stack all their expenses up and they say, okay, well, how much cash flow do I need?
Yeah.
And then I've got all my expenses paid for, and then I can go, right?
Right.
We never went at it that way. We kind of thought of it as like a net profit target.
Okay.
We want to hit $1 million net profit in the business, or $10 million by this certain date, or things like that. But we really never, Scott and I never really looked at it as instant. The path to get the freedom quickly, because then what happens after that? It's kind of like doing P90X, right? It's 90 days.
Yeah.
And then what happens when it ends? What do you do?
What's P90?
Oh, it's a Tony Horton at-home exercise program, right?
Okay.
And it's 90 days long, and you get fit and everything.
Yeah.
What happens after that?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
What happens?
I'm not very fit, so obviously I don't know that very well.
I did it 5 years ago, and it was really, really good. But it was after 90 days, you're like, okay, now what do I do? Well, you can go back to number one, or just kind of repeat it, or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I kind of view that way. It's kind of like, because you get your freedom number, and then you're like, well, how much net worth is that then? So it's like, is it $10,000 a month? But then, and I'm covering all my expenses, so I'm excited. But then, what's my net worth? Because and then how are those deals that I have that are producing those $10,000 a month or whatever? What's going to happen next? Are we just going to pay down mortgages? Are we going to trade up? Are we going to are we going to expand it out? So I think for us, we never really thought of it that way. We thought of it as building a company, building a business, something that was scalable, something that we could build step away from, come back, and then have a functioning business.
Yeah.
And we're just hitting the chasm. We're just getting right sized. We have 21 employees now.
Wow.
You know, system wide.
Yeah, that's 21. It means like you 21x your where you kind of that's kind of someone smart told me about that.
Yeah.
It's like how you grow your company. It's now you just 21x that. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. So we wanted to come up with repeatable, scalable things that and provide good opportunities for employees to come in and get everything that we never got as W-2 employees. Now, my job profession is a little bit different, but I have worked in an office and stuff, and Scott and I really wanted to make a company culture or a place to exist where people could come to work and they wouldn't have to deal with the BS that we worked with in our W-2s, not being able to have the flexibility to work remotely, or not being able to, speak up, or participate in high-level company meetings, or there's a lack of transparency, or not being able to be promoted because of some stupid thing, right? Like, it just kind of overall have a results-driven organization.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have very clear goals and strategy on that. Is it always like that from the beginning where two of you guys are working on it?
Yeah, so we sat down. I mean, you look at our old plan and you kind of read it and you laugh. Yeah. But we had the same mindset. It was like, okay, we're going to flip houses. Okay. Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is not run out and get a bunch of letters and send out 10,000 letters to a bunch of random people and stuff like that, right? Yeah. We're going to sit down and we're going to make a plan. Yeah. And we're going to say, okay, if we want to get to 50 flips a year or 100 flips a year, that's our goal. Our stated goal is we want to have that by the end of next year. Yeah. Right? So we're going to sit down and say, okay, if we're going to hit that, we have to have this much deal flow. We have to have this much letters. We have to have this much employees. We have to have this much in our budgets for the year. Right. We have to have all these things, and then day by day we have to be doing those little incremental things to get to that end goal. Versus just going out and just trying to find my next wholesale in the next 90 days and sprinting and either falling and failing or hitting in the goal and then just sprinting and you run
not profit much. A lot of time it's maybe not profit much.
Yeah, so we came up with an investment thesis, what we wanted to get out of each project, what our standards were, and then we just stuck to our principles, and then every month we do an internal evaluation of how we're doing on our performance metrics. So let's bring this like to today in syndication. Yeah. So we want to buy $250 million by the end of 2022. That's our stated goal that we just redid, right? Yeah.
Why is that? Yeah, walk me through.
So if you work it backwards, it's about $10 million net profit a year.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's with the fees and the cash flow and a disposition every year, things like that. So that's our stated revenue target. Yeah. Right. Okay. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to work that backwards, right? Well, it becomes like a three-prong goal. Because in order to get $250 million under management and under ownership, we have to have the deal flow. Yes. We have to have the investor capital. Yes. We have to have the systems. Yes. Right. So how do you let's roadmap that. Yeah. Right. So if you're going to buy $250 million of assets, how many investors do you need?
250 million.
So that's it's a certain amount, right? Yeah,
depends on your investor database.
Yeah, sure, 30% typically, right? 30% of 250 million. Yeah. So call it you've got to raise 50 million. Correct. Well, it's just easy math, right? Or 150 million, whatever it is. Yeah. And so then, if you want to get 150 million, you have to reflect back in how much you've raised. Right. And so, okay, we've raised 20 million to date. Yeah. So out of that 20 million, we've had 175 active investors. Right. The average investment is this. Yeah. The average repeat is this. Yeah. And then you can come up with a simple formula. Yes. That I need to have my investor database this big. Yeah. Because this many people are going to be active. Yeah. And they're going to be investing X amount per investor on the average. Yeah. So then you go, okay, that's great. Now I need to figure out if I need that many investors. Yes. What things am I going to have to do daily, weekly, monthly to get that many investors? Right. So what I do is I say, okay, well, I need to have 5 consultations a day, or I think it's 15 a week. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I know this is very familiar to you. So, so in order to get those 15 consultations, you're like, well, how do I have these consultations? Well, you have them on the phone, you have them, by email, whatever it might be. Yeah. So then you got to say, okay, well, what's my funnel?
Yeah.
So now you've got to say, okay, I'm going to do a monthly webinar for the world, right?
Yeah.
You probably see my webinars
Yeah.
post about, right? You got lead flow, right? I usually get about 40 to 70 people on a webinar every month, right?
Okay.
Not
Great.
bad.
Yeah, it's a good number.
Some of them are repeats.
Yeah.
Some of them are new people. And
Yeah.
they go into our database. And we thank them for coming and let them know if they want to continue being in our database, great. If not, click here and unsubscribe, no problem.
Yeah.
So that's that. And then be on people's podcasts.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big source. So who has a podcast?
Yeah. So
where can I get them?
That's a good source. Yeah.
Oh, it's an incredible source. Yeah. So, and then it's not just you as an individual, it's the whole team, right? So Scott's on podcast, Ben's on podcast. We get ourselves out there.
I have 21 people that can be on podcast.
Right. Exactly. Right. So, well, I mean, some of them are property level people, so it's, it would be good, but interesting.
Yeah.
And then we have, face-to-face meetups in town, go to these parties, go out and get out in the world,
Yeah.
And then naturally that's going to build your 15 appointments per week to talk to investors, right?
Yeah.
You do, and so my kind of way to look at it is there's 5 business days a day and you should be raising 50 grand a day, whether you have a deal or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Which means possibly, you talk to 5 investors at least a day.
Yeah.
Right, and that depends on your success rate. Yeah.
So about $1 million a month minimum.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what you're adding. It's more than that because usually you talk to more people.
Yeah.
And there's repeat, and you build a base, and but you're adding as much as $12 million a year of a bench into your database, and that allows you because then because we've been in business since 2014, so now we've raised 20 million, so we've already got 20 million in our database.
Yeah.
And then we just, every year it's 12, another 12, another 12, and then, you extrapolate it. And then you say, and then really the key is, that's great, but you gotta keep even thinking further than that. And you gotta say, okay, now how am I gonna replicate what I'm doing, make this scalable, repeatable, transferable to somebody else?
Right.
Then you bring on an employee and you have them do it.
Right, because you only have like 12 hours a day, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about as far as, we distribute salaries at Spartan, and they're not, I'm not going out and buying Ferraris and nice cars and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I'm just barely getting by, right?
Yeah.
So basically what we do is we redirect a lot of our profit back into the
business. Do you have a percentage for that, or is that strategically?
It's strategic, So and that's where Ben comes in. So Ben does a complete analysis of financial projections, and he says, okay guys, here's what we think we're going to buy this year. Like how many assets do you think we're really going to close on this year?
Yeah.
Let's say like 3. Okay. Average purchase price is this. This is what our fees are going to be, right? Because that's how you make the fees.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, these are all of our expenses. And again, those operational plans at the beginning of the year are going to take your budgets and they're going to say, hey, I'm a marketing guy. I'm going to go to the best ever conference this year. What is that going to cost me?
Right.
I'm going to go to the Bigger Pockets conference this year. What is that going to cost me? Right? Because I need to funnel to raise money, right? That's my marketing department.
Yeah.
And then Jackie on operations is like, hey, I need to send my employees to training at conferences.
Right.
What is that going to cost?
Right.
What's the travel, right?
So
we get our whole budget lined up, and we know what our overhead's going to be for the year. And we can predict, with a very rough wag, what our spend and what our revenue that's coming in is going to be.
Yeah.
And then we can say, can we hire people this year? Who can we hire? How much can we pay them? How can we incentivize them other than just paying a salary? Because I'll admit, we're not the most competitive in salary.
Yeah.
But think about what you're providing. You have ownership in these projects.
Right.
So you can give...
So you give an equity share to most of your...
Not in Spartan,
okay,
but in the subsidiaries. So you bring on a deal, you can give a share of that project to one of your employees as part of their compensation. So we have a plan for some of our employees where you can take, if we buy, Black Diamond self-storage and we're building that project... We say, hey, as part of your compensation package, you get 1% ownership in that project this year.
Okay.
So that's a way to say, that's a $50,000 equivalent.
How do you structure that? Because you have
to
be general partner for that?
Well, they're part of they get it from the GP side.
Oh, okay.
So our ownership...
As your else.
Yeah, so let's say our ownership's 30%. Well, now it's 29% because they're owning it 1% with us.
Okay.
And how have we aligned their incentive?
Yeah.
I mean, now they're part of this project.
Right.
So if it fails, they fail in
Yeah.
what they got compensated with, right? So
Right.
there's different ways you can get creative, and
Right.
you don't have to give away your whole business
Yeah.
to do it, you know.
Wow.
And so we've maintained that ownership that way, and that's kind of helped, you know. Sort
I'm
of,
always amazed whenever I talk to you. I'm amazed. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and not to get this is into the weeds, but make sure you don't actually give them, you know, make sure you structure it in a way that accomplishes what you're trying to do without giving them the burden of the tax.
Okay.
Right, because if you give them a 50% share, if you don't
Yeah.
do it right, I can't remember exactly how we did it, but then that's like a taxable event.
Yes.
Like you just earned 50K, but
Yeah.
you really didn't earn 50K.
I think if as a part of GP you don't, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's got to be like the interests of the GP.
Very, yeah.
Yeah.
True. It's
Yeah,
about
not-
how much
yeah.
you keep, right?
Exactly,
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. You know, now kind of take it back a little bit more. When is the first time you guys hired a employee aside
Sure.
from you, Ben, and Scott?
So again, the first employee other than the wives, because
Yeah.
we brought on Scott's wife Lindsay
Yeah.
and my wife Jackie, and it's
Yeah.
uniquely a 2-family business.
Yeah.
And we didn't bring them on because they were our wives.
Yeah.
We brought them on because at the time we needed what skill sets they possessed.
Right.
And Jackie's operational experience and Lindsay's research and business intelligence experience.
Yeah,
Right? So
yeah.
we had those two
That's
experiences
perfect.
that we
So
actually.
you were strategic in wife selection too.
Exactly. This goes way back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was kind of an important thing was, you know, making sure that, you know, the people are being brought on. Now,
Yeah.
Lauren, Carrie was our first technical hire.
Yeah.
She was our office manager. We went about selecting Carrie because she was actually an investor.
Yeah.
Good friend, and we knew her really well. We
Yeah.
trusted her. And she, because of her experience,
Yeah.
she had a good fit. She had a diverse background in real estate, and she
Yeah.
also was an investor, so she's familiar with that part of
Yeah.
it. She used to run an office,
Right.
so she had she had some bookkeeping experience, you know, some financial experience, so it was kind of perfect. And she's just a really good cultural upholder of the business. You walk in the front door of Spartan, and she just gets how to treat people,
Yeah.
and that was really important to us. And the reason why we hired her was because, you know, we had Ben doing financials, me doing capital raises, Scott doing projects, Lindsay doing research, Jackie doing operations,
Yeah.
and then a pile of mail
Right.
this high that came
Yeah.
into the front
Yeah.
door, right?
Yeah, it's
With
very
all these
much
assets.
like my house. Yeah.
So, you know, and then we had bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we have all these, you know, we have all these subsidiary books that we have to keep
Yeah.
up with, and we've just churned through now CFO. We've churned through all these external third-party bookkeeping companies
Yeah.
that they just fail. Like, you know, people
Right.
quit, and then you got a new one. You got to train them, and they don't understand.
Yeah.
And you know, so it was better to bring it in house.
Okay.
And I know that there's been some advice to do it out of house and things like that. But right when you're growing, I mean, I think it's something that's really important that you have somebody doing it that really understands your business
Right.
and is around a lot.
Yeah.
Because we tried hiring outside people or part-time people or whatever, but bookkeeping, I will tell you that is where you're going to spend a lot of your time.
Yeah.
And-
Absolutely. Yeah.
And getting that squared away early
Yeah.
is, I mean, we could do an hour-long presentation. I'll show you how we do it.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a system that's pretty good,
Yeah.
but it's so critical because, you know, at the end of the year, we have to send out our investors K1s, and there's
Yeah.
probably 175 K1s going out this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And you know, you got their name,
Yeah.
their distributions, their losses, what project they were on, ownership, their contribution amount, their
Right.
capital accounts, all those things, and we get them out by March 15th.
Yeah.
So
That's
we
right, yeah.
make sure, you know, so there's so much bookkeeping that has to be done correctly and well.
Right.
And I think that's your opportunity to shine because I
Right.
don't think a lot of syndicators do that.
No, it's a lot of time. It's like you get backlogged. It's not just
Mhm.
you. It's your
Yep.
CPA firm that maybe have a lot of returns, and they don't respond to you and whatnot, right? But a lot of it is because the syndicator didn't do their paperwork correctly.
And here's the thing, right? December is always the quiet time.
Yes.
It's Christmas, right?
Yeah.
It's holidays.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, this is your time to go full throttle,
Right.
This isn't your time to relax.
Yeah.
This is your time to go, everybody's not going to email me. There's not
Right.
a lot of phone calls coming in.
Right.
If you're a real estate agent, not
Yeah.
a lot of home sales.
Investors don't want to talk to you.
Investors don't want to talk to you over the holidays, right?
Yes.
So you get some quiet down, you get some downtime,
Yeah.
and that's when you hit the throttle, right?
Yeah.
That's when you say, okay, I'm going to do all that stuff, you know,
Planning.
I'm going to get all my investor data together.
Oh,
I'm going to get
that's-
over to my CPA. And here's
Yeah.
the thing: how many syndicating companies do their tax returns in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Not very many, right?
Yeah.
So if you get in first,
Yeah.
you're going to be done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody else is going to amend, or
Yeah.
extend, I should say.
Yeah.
Everybody else is going to extend. So if you're second or third or fourth place, it doesn't matter, because now you're just in the queue, and you're going to stay there all summer, and then maybe by September you'll have your stuff done.
Right.
And everybody's like, "Where's my returns?" So we just make it a selling point, And this is again, it's customer focus. It's all about the investor.
Right.
Like right now, it's easy to raise money.
Yeah.
Like there's investors all over the place. There's capital raisers. Is people that want to place yield and they don't trust the stock market, and it's been going on for a long time. So right now is the time to really be the differentiator, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't need money and it's easy to raise money, and but we're treating our investors like gold, because we want them to be around for the long term.
Right, because they are gold. They are gold.
They are gold. Yep.
Yeah, that's how you find them.